Hello, and welcome to this tutorial on everything you need to know about the meeting function within Teams. After watching this video, you'll be able to schedule and run virtual meetings on Teams like a pro. If you only need help on a single particular feature, I have chapters set up and timestamps in the video description, so you can freely and easily jump straight to the information that you want. Now, let's get started. Alright, the first step to a Teams meeting is, of course, creating the meeting. You can do this in a couple different ways. The first way is to click on the calendar button on the side here. This will also sync with your Outlook calendar. From here, you can click on the new meeting button, which will pop up this menu, giving you a bunch of options to edit the meeting with. First, add a title. This is the name that other people will see when they join the meeting. In this case, we will just name it Test Meeting. The next option is arguably the most important, adding people to your meeting. It's very hard to have a meeting with yourself, after all. In this case, we'll add Phil. You can also add optional attendees, so we'll add Vincent. Next, select the date and time you want, or just mark it as filling up the whole day. Man, that would be quite a meeting. But you can pretty much select any date or time you would like. Please do not select a date in the past, because we have not invented time travel yet. You may be wondering what the point of the all day button is. If you wanted to have a long webinar that speakers and attendees can jump in and out of throughout the day, then that could be useful. It's definitely a niche feature, but if you need it, it is there. You can also set up repeating rules, so if you want the meeting to be a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, or something else occurrence, then you can set that up there. If you want to invite a whole subsection of your company, you can add a channel as well. So in our case, all staff or technical team, and you could add any channel that your company might have. You can also add a location. So for example, second floor conference room. But if it's going to be a purely virtual meeting, then you can just ignore this option. And finally, you have the section for notes. This is where you can tell your attendees what to expect from the meeting. So in this case, we're just going to say, this is a test meeting! Exclamation mark, just to show off all of these familiar tools up top. We're going to bold it, we're going to italicize it, and we're going to underline it. When I say this is a test meeting, I mean it. It is a test meeting. So once you have everything set up the way you want it, you could just hit send up at the top, and that will send the meeting out to all of your attendees. It is important to note that when using the new meeting button, like we did, if you wanted to, for example, set up a meeting with yourself as the only attendee for the sake of testing features before using those features in a proper meeting, then you'll see we have a meeting right here. I am the only attendee. And instead of send, we have a save options. So let's go ahead and save that. And as you can see, when you save the meeting, if we go click on it, we only have an option to edit. We do not have an option to start the meeting. So when you use the new meeting button, it does not give you an option to start the meeting unless you have more than just yourself as the attendees. This still can be useful. For example, if you want to dedicate a certain amount of time to a meeting at a future date, but you're not entirely sure who you want to invite to the meeting yet, you can save the meeting and then add attendees at a later date by just clicking on the meeting, go to edit, and you can add attendees and optional attendees. But for now, we do not need this meeting. We are simply going to delete it. Alright then, let us move on to the next method of scheduling a meeting. Most of the alternate scheduling options end up in the same place at that options menu we were looking at before. They just have different start points. For example, instead of hitting the new meeting button, you can go through your calendar until you find the date and time that you'd like, then just click the square on the calendar. And as you can see, it's the same meeting options that we were looking at before. And this also fills out the date and time with the 30-minute square that you clicked, allowing you to skip editing that particular section. Although if you want a longer or shorter meeting than 30 minutes, then you'll still need to edit the time. And as you can see, it also has the same flaw as the other meeting type, where you cannot start the meeting with just yourself. The next option is the Meet Now button at the top. If you go ahead and click that, all it does is ask you for a name for the meeting. We'll just put in test meeting, and then you can see you get to start the meeting right away. Okay, so once you are in the meeting from the Meet Now button, you'll see that you have an option to add participants or copy the meeting link. So you can just go to add participants, and you can invite people based on your team's contact list, or you can dial a number. I believe you should be able to enter an email address as well. Or the other option, where you could have copied a link, would allow you to have a link that you could paste into an email or a Teams message and send it out to whoever you want. Meet Now is also the first option we have gotten, where you can start a Teams meeting purely with yourself. So this will allow you to test out any and all of the features of the Teams meeting before you go into an actual meeting with other people, which is very useful. Alright, lastly we have the webinar option, which is reached by clicking this little drop-down menu here, and you have webinar right there. Scheduling this works exactly the same as the normal new meeting button, but you'll notice things are a little bit different now. This time you have the registration form that you can edit and then send out to people that you want to attend the meeting. And then you have the normal options of add title, date and time, location, notes. But this time, adding attendees has been changed to adding presenters. Your attendees are added through the registration form, and your presenters, people that you want to be involved with presenting the content of the webinar, is done through this here. We'll take a quick look at the registration form. As you can see, the registration form is pretty fancy. You've probably seen something very similar to this before. You can upload an image to appear at the top. You can add a title for the event. You can list the date and time for the event. You can list the location. Again, if it's purely virtual, then you could ignore that option. You can add the description. And of course, you can add speakers, so your attendees will know what kind of presenters to expect from the meeting. And then you have a place for your attendees to enter in their information, and you can add additional fields if you want more information from your attendees. And then once you have everything set up just the way you want it in your new webinar, you can hit send, and you just scheduled a webinar. Congratulations, because now we have covered everything as far as scheduling Teams meetings. Okay, now let's cover what you can actually do in a meeting once you've started it. We'll just go ahead and hit Meet Now. Test meeting. Okay, so once you first join the meeting, you'll be presented with this screen, which gives you some options. This is just where you can adjust some things like your microphone audio, your computer audio. If you're using a phone, your phone audio, room audio. You can choose not to use audio. In this case, we want to use audio. You can also choose whether your webcam is turned off or on, and this just lets you set everything up before you officially join the meeting, so that way you don't have to mess with any of it while the meeting is ongoing. Okay, so once you are in the meeting, the majority of the screen is taken up by a display of the current speaker's icon or video if they have their webcam enabled, or if they are sharing content, then the shared content will be displayed there. Along the top of the screen, we have various buttons that do different features within the meeting. Moving from left to right, the first button displays a list of the current participants in the meeting. From here, you would be able to select someone's name by right-clicking and then mute them or spotlight them as you may need to do. It is also from this menu that you can invite new people to join. Either you can click share invite and get a link to the meeting, or you can just type in someone from your team's contact list and invite them that way. The next button is the chat function. It is here that you can send messages to the rest of the people in the meeting, and this is the same chat function as the rest of Teams, so you can do all kinds of things like send faces or GIFs or whatever it is you may like to send. You can also attach documents. You have everything. You have everything that you would normally have on Teams. Okay, the next option is the reactions drop-down. It is here that you can send out a couple reaction emojis. For example, let's do the applause. And basically what that does is if there were other attendees in the meeting, they would see it appear on the center of their screen. You also, on this menu, have the raise hand option. And as you can see here, when you have your hand raised, it highlights your name and displays that the hand is raised. This is usually used in situations where you want your attendees to have to request in order to ask a question, so they can raise their hand if they have a question that they want to ask. It's important to note that the raised hand does not go away unless you click it again, so make sure to remember to turn your raised hand off after you have asked your question. After all, it would be a little bit embarrassing to have your hand raised for the entire meeting. Not that I would know anything about that. The next option is the Breakout Rooms feature. This allows you to split all of your attendees into multiple different rooms. For example, if you wanted to split everyone into different groups and have each group brainstorm a different solution to a common issue, and then bring everyone back together later to see what kind of solutions people came up with. So you get to choose how many rooms you would like to break everyone into. You can go all the way up to 50 rooms, so you have a lot of flexibility here for if you have really large teams, for example. You can have teams split everyone into the different rooms randomly, and it will split everyone so that there's roughly an even amount of people in each room. Alternatively, you can choose to split people manually into each room. This is useful for if you have pre-assigned teams at your company and you want to maintain those for the sake of this team meeting. We'll just go automatically and create rooms. And as you can see, now we have room 1 and room 2, and you can very easily rename the rooms. So for example, blue team. Okay, so then you have 2 teams set up, and you can split participants into that, and you have the Assign Participants button. You can hit the plus button to add an additional room, and if you're not happy with these rooms, you can just reshuffle them. It will delete all your current rooms and recreate new ones. You can also remove all your rooms, and you can edit some parameters like assigning specific presenters to each room. You can set a time limit for how long the rooms are going to be active for. You can choose whether people are allowed to return back to the main lobby or not. And of course, if you want to delete all existing rooms, people within the rooms will receive a 10-second countdown, and then they will return back to the main meeting. So you have a lot of control there, and it can be very, very useful for certain kinds of meetings, so be sure to keep it in mind. Alright, and after that is this button that looks like 3 dots, and that is more options for the meeting. Device settings. It gives you very similar options to what you were presented at when you first joined the meeting. You can change your audio input and output sources. You can adjust the volume of different things. You can change the setting for noise suppression, and also change your webcam source. And you can also choose to mirror your video, but keep in mind this only changes the view for yourself. Next in the more options is call health. This displays a ton of metrics about how the call is doing. and you can click on the little pull-out menus to view more details. Obviously, it will give you more information if you have more people in the call. If you're doing a test meeting like this and you are the only person in the call, then it doesn't display much of anything. This is more of an advanced feature, but to put simply, if you are having lag or issues with the call, you can try looking at this page to get a better idea of where the issues are coming from or where the issues are centered at. Next, meeting options gives you more control over how participants can interact with your meeting. The first option lets you control whether or not people have to wait in a lobby before being let into the meeting. This is very useful if you want more control over the start time of the meeting, instead of people just filtering in whenever they feel like it. And you could choose to let all people bypass the lobby, and you can also choose whether or not you want an announcement when people join or leave the meeting. The next option limits who can present in the meeting. So this is useful for more of a webinar styled meeting where you want certain people talking and everyone else listening. And you can go further and enable or disable the microphone of attendees and also the camera for attendees, and even the text chat, reactions, and finally you can turn on cart captions if you have someone to do captions for your organization, or if you need captions but you don't have someone to provide captions, you can also just use the normal automated captions that Teams provides, which is a setting that shows up a little bit later. Next, you have meeting notes, which lets you take notes for the meeting. This actually opens back up in your Teams window. Swap over there, and as you can see, it's pretty standard notes things. As you can see, you can just edit in some notes pretty easily, and you can also delete them if you don't like it. It's important to note that these are visible to all attendees, so don't go writing ridiculous stuff. Meeting info gives you a bunch of info about the meeting, the date and time it's taking place. It offers you a dial-in number so you can join on your phone if you cannot join from your Teams apps. And as the organizer, it gives you this number that you can send out to people that you know ahead of time will not be able to join with their Teams apps. And even if you are an attendee to a meeting and you join with your team app first and then have to leave at some point and you want to join on your phone, you can come over here, get the dial-in number, and it gives you some more join options right there. Now next on the more options, you have this section right here, which just gives some options for how people are displayed in the meeting. So gallery just refers to like this in the background where you see my icon, or if I had my webcam on, you would see my face. And so the gallery is speaking of everyone's icons or webcams. As you have a normal gallery, which shows just a few people and shows the primary speaker most prominently. You can do a large gallery where it shows a larger group of people, and you can also choose together mode, which kind of takes everyone's webcams and tries to remove the borders of the video and then puts everyone closer together so it kind of looks like everyone's seated in the same room. It's a really interesting feature and it could be great for building togetherness. You have a few more options of setting the gallery at the top of the screen, or getting rid of the gallery and just focus on the content, and you can also make the whole meeting full screen. Now, Call Me gives you an option to input your phone number, and then Teams will call you from the meeting. So this can be a little bit of a faster way of joining the meeting from your phone instead of your Teams app. Or if you're just having some connectivity issues from your Teams app, you can join from your phone to get past that. You can, of course, apply some background effects. Go ahead and show some of these. So as you can see, they have all kinds of different options that can be great for putting in the background of your webcam. And these are computer generated, so you do not need a green screen or anything behind you. You can just turn your webcam on, select one of these, and you will have a background. I personally like the Robot Lab. And of course, they have things both business friendly and also more personal, like some of these are, while they do look nice, they are from various video games, so whether or not those are appropriate for your organization depends on your organization. Then you have an option for turning on live captions. These are the auto-generated captions that Teams provides. So this will just auto-generate captions for the other people in the meeting. As you can see, there it is right there. I think that it works pretty well, all things considered. It's detecting pretty much all the words I'm saying. So yeah, it's a good feature. And of course, you have the Start Recording button for if you want to record your meeting for being able to send out to people later, or perhaps posting on your business YouTube channel, or anything else you might need to use it for. And finally, you can turn off and on chat bubbles, you can mute notifications, and you can turn off incoming video, and you have a help button which opens up the Teams knowledge base on their website for more in-depth specific help on strange issues you might be having, or if like features aren't working right for you, or anything of that sort. And that about does it for the more options. Okay, and the next two buttons simply toggle on or off your camera and microphone. And then you have share content. This is kind of the big one, you know? So first you have an option to include your computer sound with the content you're sharing. It's important to toggle that on if you're sharing any kind of video with audio. If you have your webcam going, you have a few different options for how your content is displayed. So you can have just the content only. You can have where your webcam will appear and then you'll have the content behind you. You can have yourself and the content next to each other. Or you can have your webcam and then the content off in a little box over your shoulder. And you can add a background that will appear to fill in the empty space between your webcam and content. So yeah, play around with the options, see what you like the most. And then when you're sharing content, you can choose to share just your computer screen. If you have multiple screens, then it will show multiple options here. You can also go to Window and select a specific window. So for example, you could select your web browser and show a web page, or if you have like Microsoft Word open, you could select the Microsoft Word menu. Or if you have a PowerPoint, you can select PowerPoint and then go through the slides that way. Next we have Microsoft Whiteboard, which is a very cool system that they've added. As you can see right within the meeting, it will open up Microsoft Whiteboard. Alright, but then right here inside of the Teams meeting, you can start whiteboarding things. And you can have multiple different people contribute to the whiteboard at the same time and just have a nice brainstorming session. And you can also share content from camera. This just means you will go look at individual still pictures, so you can just post a picture up on the meeting for other people to see. It has a designated option for sharing PowerPoint slides, so if you have a PowerPoint prepared, you'll be able to see the file here, and you can just click it and it'll bring it up on the Teams meeting. If you don't have a specific button for the option of the thing you want to share, you can also browse your OneDrive and select the file manually, or browse your computer and select the file manually. Freehand by InVision is kind of like the Microsoft Whiteboard. It's just done by a different company and has a few different options. You can certainly try it out and see if you prefer it over Whiteboard, but Whiteboard has pretty much all of the options you would need, so there's not much need to go crazy with these other apps. And of course, once you are ready to stop sharing anything, whether it be the whiteboard or video or a picture or PowerPoint or whatever it is you're sharing. Once you're ready to stop, you can just go right up here to stop presenting and click that, and voila. Finally, there is the leave button, which is mostly self-explanatory. If you are the organizer, you also have an option for end meeting, which will just end the meeting for everybody, whereas if you are an attendee, you can just hit leave and the meeting will still continue as long as there is at least one person in the meeting. So we'll just go ahead and end the meeting now. And as you can see, after the meeting is ended, your notes remain, and you can take those and copy them over to a more permanent place on your computer, or you can just leave them where they are because you just need them for a quick reminder after the meeting is over, or whatever use you might have for them. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video and learned everything you need to know about Teams meetings. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day and go on to host many meetings like a pro.